Hello everyone, hope you're all having a lovely day today. Happy St. Patrick's Day to all who celebrate. So I actually wanted to make a video about St. Patrick's Day because as a lot of you guys know, I was actually raised Roman Catholic. And so being raised Roman Catholic, I was celebrating St. Patrick's Day growing up, and it was sort of a big deal in my family. And as a lot of you guys also know, I am no longer Catholic, I am a Christian. And so I was kind of thinking like, well, how should Christians go about St. Patrick's Day? Should we celebrate it? What's kind of the whole shtick with St. Patrick's Day? And so I decided to do a little bit of research, a little bit of digging on the good old World Wide Web. And I actually found it to be really interesting, learning about kind of the lore about St. Patrick's Day, and also just more specifically, learning about St. Patrick himself, or as he actually calls himself, just Patrick. So I have a few notes that I took down on this notepad, and I actually just kind of wanted to share them because it's actually really interesting, and I think it's kind of a good way to look at St. Patrick's Day and maybe how Christians should go about, not really how we should go about it, but kind of just, I don't know, it just seemed fun and interesting to just kind of talk about. So one thing that I thought was really interesting was that in his autobiography, he actually starts it with saying, "My name is Patrick. I am a sinner, simple country person, and the least of all believers. I am looked down upon by many." This is really interesting because I feel like in the modern day, Catholic Church, he's kind of, like it's a big deal. St. Patrick's Day is a huge deal, and I think it's really interesting to see the humility that he had while he was here on earth. Like, he didn't call himself saint, he called himself a sinner. So just a little background about St. Patrick's Day. Patrick was captured he was actually British. He wasn't Irish, he was British, and he was captured at the age of 16 and brought to Ireland to essentially work as a slave on a farm. And before he was working, he actually wasn't really super Christian, he wasn't really into it apparently all that much. But that changed once he was, working and doing this farm labor and literally being essentially a slave. I think I say a lot often that people turn to God in times of trouble and trial, and that is definitely true, and I think that this is a very prime example of that. And so essentially he was working on this farm for a very long time. I want to say it was like 6 years, and then eventually in a dream it was shown, I guess, kind of like an escape route from where he was being captive, and he eventually, made it out, and there were British ships waiting for him, and he was essentially taken home. However, and this is where it gets really interesting, once he was home, he actually felt a burden for the people of Ireland, the people who literally captured him, and eventually returned to Ireland to spread Christianity. And I think this is really awesome as it shows the amount of forgiveness he had. As Christians, we definitely are supposed to forgive everybody because we know that we're not good. We have nothing to boast in, to brag about, and we're supposed to love our enemies. And this is a huge example of Patrick not only loving his enemies, but going to great lengths to show them love, going to great lengths to even convert them and get them saved. I just think that's really cool and just shows how much mercy Patrick had and how much compassion he had, that he was willing to go to the people who captured him, who literally took him away, and be like, hey, I care for your souls. I want to see you guys saved. And one thing that I think is also really interesting is that when he was in Ireland, apparently what he did was incorporate Irish culture into Christian lessons. So whenever he was teaching about Christianity, he tried to kind of use the Irish culture to make it more understandable. And this is kind of mixed. I have mixed feelings about this because on one hand, I think that is a really good thing. I think it is very important to meet people where they're at, to not necessarily shove everything on them all at once, but kind of almost like using everyday life and activities to make something more understandable and comprehensible to somebody. There are certain TV shows that I'll watch or books that I'll read, and I'll be like, oh, I see like how that can connect to this in the Bible, or I see how God can use this, or especially in music too. I think using books and, TV references and stuff like that is actually a very, what's common in everyday life, I think is a good way to get a message across and help someone to better understand something. The most popular examples for this, and this we actually don't know is definitely true, but one thing that apparently St. Patrick did, this is a little bit more of the lore aspect and the myth, but apparently he used the shamrock to kind of explain the Trinity, how it's 3 parts in one, which I think is a pretty good explanation. Whether or not he definitely used that, I'm not 100% sure. I actually don't think anyone is, but he definitely did use, I think, the Celtic cross. Like, if you've ever seen a Celtic cross, it's a cross that has a circle in the middle of it. And I know that in Ireland, they were actually very paganistic with nature. And so he used like the sun, like it was a very prominent thing for them. So he used the sun to help that understand. And that's where I felt a little bit iffy, because it's never healthy to mix paganism and Christianity. But I think using just aspects of just simply culture, that can definitely be appropriate. Essentially, the idea of meeting people where they're at, but at the same time, not necessarily sacrificing, the actual faith. As I said before, much of Ireland was very paganistic, and this definitely made things hard for him. However, eventually the king did convert, and then because the king converted, a lot of the nation also went along with that. One thing that I thought was really interesting, because obviously, on St. Patrick's Day, all you see is green. Like, I remember the college that I went to, St. Patrick's Day was such a huge day. St. Patty's Day, they called it St. Fratty's Day, and everyone was just wearing green. We literally had like a school shirt that was like our school shirt that was just green with shamrocks on it. Apparently, green was symbolic of the Roman Catholic Church, whereas orange was symbolic of Protestantism. Orange being, representing William of Orange, who was a Protestant king. I'm obviously not doing that now because I have to leave for work in like a few minutes. I'm not saying that you're doing something wrong if you're wearing green, but St. Patrick's Day has kind of turned into a celebration of like Ireland and Irish stuff. So I don't know, it's kind of interesting to see that everyone specifically chooses green rather than like white or orange. So thinking about all these things, do I think that Patrick should be someone who is worshipped and glorified and just bowed down to because of St. Patrick's Day? Not necessarily. However, do I think there's a lot of things that he did in his life that we can definitely learn from? Absolutely. I think that after, doing this research and finding out, his going to Ireland and to convert people who wronged him, I think we can definitely learn a lot of forgiveness from him. I think we can learn mercy from him. I think there's definitely things that we can learn, as we can, from any Christian. So I hope you guys like this video. I thought it would just be something kind of fun to do. If you like this video, give it a like and hit the subscribe button. If you ever have any comments, questions, or concerns, or prayer requests, do not hesitate to leave those down in the comments below or send me an email. And as always, have a lovely rest of your day, and God bless.